Hey y'all, what's up? It's Amanda and I am back with another video. So today's video we are going to be filming my August wrap-up. So this wrap-up is going to be an interesting one because I read mostly library books, so the only physical book I have to share with you is this one. Okay, so without further ado, let's just get right on into the video. Also, if you can hear the lawnmower in the background, like, please ignore. I can hear it and it's driving me insane. First, we are going to talk about my statistics. I read a total of 10 books this month, which equaled out to 2,441 pages. And then for my audiobook reading, it says I read 10.03 hours, but I did read a little more than that. I read probably closer to like 40 hours at least. But in terms of books that I read only via audiobook, that is correct. 10 hours is correct. My average time to finish a book was 6 days. My top moods were mysterious, dark, tense, and emotional. So those 4 are my top 4. In terms of pacing, I had 70% of the books that I read were medium paced, so 7 books were medium paced, and then 30% were fast paced, or 3 books were fast paced. For page number, 56% were less than 300 pages, so about 5 books were less than 300 pages long, and then about 44% of the books I read, or 4 books, were 300 to 499 pages long. For this statistic, it doesn't count the one audiobook that I read as like a page number count because I read it via audiobook. Then for audiobook length, I read 1 book via audiobook. So for that statistic, it was between 8 and 15 hours and 59 minutes. 100% of the books that I read were fiction. I am doing very poorly on my reading 20% nonfiction goal for this year. Yeah, I'm struggling. Also, for genres, my most read genre was horror, with 3 books I read were horror books. The next highest genre is actually tied. I read 2 young adult books, thriller books, literary books, graphic novels, and fantasy books. So those 5 genres, I read 2 books. And then for tags, I always track my tags because I like to see which ones I read via like my owned collection or via the library, or maybe it's like an arc that I read. So for this month, you can see I read 8 books via my library. They were library books. 1 book was an arc and 1 book I owned myself. So for formatting, like I said, this one is a little off, but for the story graph, it says that I read 10% of my books digitally, which is the 1 arc that I read. I read 10% of my books via audiobook, which is the 1 book I read solely via audiobook, and then 80% were print. So that's 8 books that I read via print. And my star ratings, so my average star rating was a 4.33. I had a pretty good reading month. I had 2 5 stars, 2 4.5 stars, 2 4.25 stars, 3 4 stars, and 1 3.75 stars. So yeah, let's get right on into the books. Alright y'all, so we are going to get into the books that I read. The first book that I finished in August was Piglet by Lottie Hazel. This book was featured in one of my reading vlogs. I'll have it linked up above. I forget which vlog it was. They all kind of mix in my brain. But this one, it was an interesting one. It's all about like female rage. That's like a theme throughout it, as well as like familial relationships, millennial life, I guess. And basically we are following our main character, Piglet, who, that's her nickname. We don't know her actual name throughout the book. We just refer to her as Piglet. She is set to be married to like her fiance, and then 2 weeks before the wedding, he divulges like this huge betrayal And she continues for the next 2 weeks being like, ha 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 ha. Yeah, I'm gonna go through the motions and like continue to marry you because who's gonna call off the wedding 2 weeks beforehand? But then they go through the wedding and she just, something changes in her. And it was very interesting, but ultimately I rated it 3.75 stars. This was my lowest rated book of the month. I enjoyed it. I was just expecting to connect to the characters more than I did. I felt like I was a little detached from our main character, Piglet. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I got it off of my TBR. It's also obviously a book that I own, so like I'm glad I read it. But yeah, if this sounds interesting to you, I recommend that you pick it up. I know it worked for a lot more people. Like a lot of people that I follow gave it 5 stars as opposed to like a 3.75 like I gave it. So yeah, the next book that I read was Unfamiliar, Volume 1. This book, we're following a couple witches, and our main character is actually a witch moving to a new town. And she moves into this haunted house and she decides that she can't continue living with the ghosts that live in the house. So she goes out into town to find someone to exorcise the ghosts for her. And that's how she starts making friends around town. This is like a cute, cozy, kind of a little spooky vibe. It's not really like supposed to scare you. At least in my opinion, it's not supposed to be scary. I wish I could show you the pictures, like the graphics. It's so cute and cozy and like colorful. It's not like, you know, spooky looking. So I gave this one a 5 stars. For me, if I enjoy a graphic novel and I see no issues with it, I'm gonna give it a 5 star. So my ratings system for graphic novels is a little different than for regular novels. I don't know if that's like chaotic of me, but whatever. Next, I read Greta and Valden by Rebecca K. Riley. This one is following 2 siblings, Greta and Valden, and they live together. I believe they live together, but they are like descendants of Russian immigrants. So Greta and Valden are kind of just navigating being millennials, finding like love and stuff like that. Valden was in a PhD program to be a physicist, and then he dropped out because he had a mental breakdown about how he didn't want to do that for the rest of his life. So now he's a comedian and he's actually very successful, and we're just following him as he grapples with like this relationship that he lost during the time around his mental breakdown, and his feelings for this man, and like whether or not they're going to get together or not, and also just like his career. And then in terms of Greta, the beginning of the novel starts off with like she is kind of flirting with one of her classmates. She is in a master's program for like literature, I believe, and one of her classmates is totally like leading her on, and then divulges that she actually has a girlfriend. And so Greta is like stunned. She's like, oh my gosh, what? And then it's kind of about Greta reeling from that and like dealing with the aftermath of finding out that the girl she was crushing on actually has a girlfriend. It's very interesting. Their lives are very chaotic, and I really enjoyed this one. I ultimately gave it a 4.25. Next, I read Unfamiliar Volume 2. This also, I forgot to say, is by Hallie Newsome. So that's the author of these 2 graphic novels. I gave this one a 5 star as well. It's just a continuation of the story in Volume 1. So I feel like I can't really say much, but it was a cute, fun time. The next one I read was Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey. This one I picked up solely because I heard Books and Lala talk about it, and she enjoyed it, I'm pretty sure, from what I remember. And also this fulfilled my buzzword readathon like prompt. I had to read a book with the word there, or there in the title. And this one obviously has the word there in the title. This one follows our main character. She is a twin, actually. And our main character moves with her twin to Scotland, I believe, because our main character actually is there to integrate wolves back into the wildlife and the ecosystem, the environment in this Scottish town. She's there, and then the townspeople are very much against these wolves coming back into the environment because they think that the wolves are going to eat all their livestock. And the main character is advocating for the wolves, like, no, they are not going to do that, when a man turns up like missing at first, and then they find out he's dead. Basically, the wolves get blamed for this man's like missing person status slash like death, and she decides to take it upon herself to figure out who is behind this man's death. So it's very interesting. I really enjoyed this book. It had beautiful writing. Our main character goes through so much, and she has this condition. It's almost like synesthesia, but I'm forgetting what the actual like word they used in the novel was. But basically, like, if she's looking at someone and they like they like stub their toe or something like that, and she watches this person stub their toe, she'll feel it in her body as well as if she stubbed her toe herself. So it's almost like a parallel, like, sympathetic nervous system kind of response. I don't know. But I rated this a 4.5. I thought it was really amazing, like I said, and I really enjoyed this one. Next, I read If I Stopped Haunting You by Colby Wilkins. This one is an ARC. It comes out October 15th. So I rated this one 4 stars. I highly recommend that you read this one. This one had all the spooky vibes along with being like a romance. That's like the whole plot. We have our 2 main characters. They are both Indigenous authors, and the very, very beginning of the story follows they're on a panel to like promote their books and talk about being Indigenous in the publishing industry. And the female main character ends up getting into an argument with the male main character, and she throws a book at him, and it starts this whole like controversy, whatever. 4 months later, our female main character, I'm forgetting their names. I'm really bad with remembering character names, so sorry about that. But our female main character, 4 months later, decides to go to a writing retreat in Scotland, oddly enough. So same setting for both novels, the last one I read and this one. But anyways, so she goes on this writing retreat, and little does she know that the other male main character is also on this writing retreat. And this retreat is being held at like this spooky haunted castle, and it's in the middle of winter as well. So they're there trying to write the next greatest horror novel because they're both horror writers. They find out that the castle is actually haunted, and they try to figure out how to like unhaunt it, basically. And along the way, they kind of fall in love. And it's really cute, but it's also spooky and eerie, and the vibes are all there. I really love this one. It's like the perfect fall read. I gave this one a 4 stars. I don't know if I said that. So next I read Nothing But the Rain by Naomi Salmon. This book it's like a novella. It's only 100 pages, and it's about a town where one day the rain turns from like regular rain to, if the rain touches your skin, you lose memories. And like, not just like memories from your past. I mean, like, you'll step out into the rain and forget why you were stepping out onto the street in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, you'll lose your most recent memories, and it'll just keep going back and back and back. So we're following our main character, who is like an older woman who is holed up in her house, and she is trying to figure out how to get out of her situation. So the people in the town are under lockdown. They can't leave the town. So they're kind of trapped in this situation of like, if I step outside and get wet, the rain touches my skin, I'm gonna forget why I was out there in the first place. So it's very interesting. I really enjoyed this one. There's not much you need to know going into it. That's like all you really need to know. And I gave this a 4.25 stars. It was a really powerful novel, or novella, I guess. Okay, we have 3 more books to go. We're almost done. So the next book I read was Delicates, which is the second in the Sheets graphic novel series. This is by Brenna Thumler. This book follows our main characters, Wendell, and I forget our other main character's name. But Wendell is the ghost. Basically, Wendell wants more human friends, and our main character is afraid to let her classmates meet Wendell because they think that they'll think she's weird for having a ghost as a friend, which, like, okay, kind of valid. But also, she kind of starts ignoring Wendell. You see their relationship blossom and also like face hardships in this novel. And there's also this other main character named Eliza who is dealing with depression. And so it talks a lot about depression, grief, sadness, and what does it mean to be popular, and are you like complicit in bullying if you let it happen? You don't participate in the bullying, but you let it happen and you watch it happen. Like, are you complicit in the bullying? So it was a very good graphic novel. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't as amazing as Sheets was, and it was also kind of long. So those are my thoughts on that. Next, I read The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monika Kim. This book, we're following our main character. She's an Asian American in, I forget if they're in like California or something like that. I forget where it's set exactly. In the very, very beginning of the book, her mom tells our main character and her younger sister that their father has left them. And basically that's where the novel picks up. We are never introduced to the father. We're following our main character, her younger sister, and then their mother. And we're following as our main character's mother starts dating this white guy who kind of fetishizes Asian women. And he has these like piercing blue eyes, and our main character gets obsessed with eating eyeballs. And it's kind of very gross. And it was very gory. It was very, like, it made me cringe. And our main character is very unhinged, but she also has like female rage. And like, there's conversations about fetishization of Asian women, as well as like trying to seem like the good guy, even though like you are still objectifying women and like fetishizing them. So it's very interesting. I gave this 4.5 stars. I really love the conversations in this book. And as I said, it was gory. So if you don't like horror, this is a horror novel. If you don't like anything to do with eyeballs, I don't really recommend. I hate anything to do with eyeballs. Fun fact, whenever there's like a movie that I'm watching and they do anything with the eyeballs, I have to look away because it's like too gross for me. But I could tolerate this one just because I was like deeply fascinated by it. So yeah, that's The Eyes Are the Best Part. And the last book that I read was Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. This is the one audiobook that I read, and I read it for my most recent vlog, which is the Scavenger Hunt Picks My Reads vlog. So I did that scavenger hunt that everybody does on BookTube, where you like go through different prompts, pick out different books, and then that leads to the next prompt, whatever. So anyways, I read this horror book, Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. This is about our main character, Vera, who she's kind of estranged from her mother, but then she gets a call saying that her mother is deeply ill and that she's dying. So she's asked to come back to her hometown. And from the very beginning, we find out that Vera has like kind of a dark past in terms of like her family. Her father did something very unforgivable in the town, and so all the townspeople hate her. And it's talked around for part of the book, So we don't know exactly what the father did until like further into the book. But there's also something creepy going on with the house. The house, it seems to be like odd things are happening. Like there's power flickers and like there's this strange like sludge that keeps appearing everywhere. And like Vera keeps thinking she's seeing things out of the corner of her eye. And so it's very strange. It's kind of like a haunted house novel. It was okay. I gave it like a 3.75/4 stars. I'm kind of torn on my rating, but around there. It was okay. It wasn't like my favorite. I'm leaning more towards a 3.75 just because I feel like it wasn't as spooky as I wanted it to be. Like I wanted to be scared, but I wasn't really, if I'm being honest. So I thought the writing was really well done, and I didn't have any problems with like the storytelling. I just wanted the vibes to be there, you know what I mean? And they just weren't there as much as I wanted them to be. Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. If you have gotten to the end of this video and don't know what to say, comment the burger emoji for Piglet. Yeah, comment that down below. And I always have my social medias linked in the description. I have Instagram, Threads, TikTok, The Storygraph, and Goodreads. So follow me or friend me on any of those. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.